Frontier is implementing a dedicated mission server in patch 3.3, and today I'm going to talk about what effects I think that will have on the game. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with Down to Earth Astronomy. So as many of you will probably already know, a dedicated mission server is going to be implemented into Elite Dangerous in the Q4 update, dropping later this year. And just to quickly go over what kind of changes that is going to introduce into the game. First of all, this has nothing to do with session hopping, where you change session at, let's say, places like Dav's Hope and other places like that. This only affects the mission board. I need to stress and make that very, very clear. Now, what they mean, the fact that they can now offload this mission board generation to a dedicated server, is you will most likely see less crashes, and the board hopping, or the mission board should load slightly faster. But of course, the main effect is that you will only get a single board regardless of what game you play, or what kind of gameplay you play. So if you're an open, solo, private, it doesn't matter, you will always get the same board. So to compensate, this is obviously mean you will have less missions available. So to compensate for this, what is going to be changed as well is that all missions across the board is going to get a 10% increase in the payout. They're going to reduce the number of wing missions, so that means there will be more normal missions. Of course, this will have a quite a drawback on money-making spots that revolves around wing missions, of course. The refresh time of the mission board is going to be reduced from 15 minutes to 10 minutes, meaning that even though you now only have a single board, it will now refresh every 10 minutes rather than every 15 minutes. And the overall number of missions offered at a station is not going to change. There seems to be a hard cap, I believe it's at 120 that can be generated in a single board. And that seems to be they don't seem to be able to change that, so that's a hard cap thing, which is why passenger missions are on a separate board as well. So those are the hard changes that is going to be implemented. And let's begin to dive down and let's have a look at what this is going to mean for the game. First of all, the most notable change is that any money-making spot that has previously revolved around the fact that you could stack up to 20 missions will of course receive a tremendous nerf. These are the places that will be hit the hardest, because it's going to be a lot more difficult to get those 20 missions, because you of course have less available, and that means you would probably have to go out with a not full board, or you would have to wait 10 minutes. In either case, that would mean an overall reduction in your credits per hour for spots like that. Though there are stations out there that would offer 20 or more of the same type of mission on a single board, though they are rare, they are out there. So those stations might be interesting to look at after the change, to see if you can make some extra credit around those areas. Now, it does also mean that, of course, since we can no longer be stacking up to 20 missions as easily as we could before, I think the main focus when it comes to money making is going to shift from solving a lot of missions very quickly to maybe take missions that take longer to solve, that has a higher payout, where you probably wouldn't need to collect, let's say, 20 missions, but you could maybe only collect like 2, 3, less than 10, I would say, and it's probably more realistic that you're going to get that in a single board. Of course, that would mean that the missions would need to be higher paying in order for them still to be profitable in an approximate same way. So a good example of what we're seeing right now could be something like source and return missions, where you're asked to go out and bring something back to the station, and they would then offer you a quite substantial amount of money for your efforts. Another place that could be interesting to look at is places that is already capped at less than 20 when it comes to how many missions you can stack. That could, for instance, be passenger missions. Passenger missions are, of course, naturally capped because of the number of cabins you have. So, again, passenger missions is not going to receive that hard of a hit because of this change. So those are some of the areas that will probably be interesting to look at after the change. So because of that, what I decided to do was I went out and I did a little bit of tests. I went down to Robigo, to Robigo, however you want to pronounce that, to run some passenger missions out to Sirius atmospheric. And I did them from House's Reach, and yes, I know that you can probably make more money running it from Robico Mines, but I already had a lot of stats collected for that station, so I could try to make a little bit of a comparison to see where it compared to where it was before. And what I did in my test was I would go into the station, and I would only take missions from a single board. I would not board hop at all. I would just take whatever was on the board, and then I would fly out, complete the missions, and come back, and then restock on missions. And I did that for a couple of hours just to see what the long-term effect was of not actually refreshing your session. And what I found was actually quite interesting. Now, in the beginning, I was easily able to get the missions that would pretty much fill up my ship completely with missions that would pay over 2 million credits, which is probably what you would expect to do now, even with board hopping. So I was easily able to get those missions on a single board. That, of course, means that that run would then, after the patch, have yielded me 10% extra compared to what it did before. So I would then actually make more money on that initial run than I did beforehand. So to start out, it looked actually very promising and might actually, in passenger missions case, be a slight buff. But then as time went on, I began to get a harder and harder time. Even though the mission board did refresh by the time I got back, I had a harder and harder time finding these 2 million plus paying missions. So overall, the missions were beginning to be less and less lucrative. And after spending about 2 hours there, I was beginning to average missions at, I would say, less than 1.5 million. So I was definitely seeing a reduction in the payout of the mission over time when I was not flipping the board constantly. I'm not sure, I've never actually noticed that effect before, probably because it would just be such a natural part of mission running that you would refresh the instant from time to time. So I've actually never noticed that effect before, but it was pretty clear. So if that's going to be a general thing, that if you stay in the same spot and you run the same type of missions over and over again, they are over time going to begin to degrade and pay less. That would mean that it would be more profitable for the casual player who might just spend like half an hour or something, or maybe a little less than an hour running missions at a time, rather than being the quote-unquote hardcore grinder who would play for hours and hours, and they would, if this is a general effect, of course, would then begin to see a decreasing payout the more time they spend. Again, I only seen it in this spot doing my testing here, but it was pretty consistent that every time I run, it was slowly decreasing with the number of the payout of the missions. So that's quite interesting to see if that's going to be a global effect after the change, if we're going to begin to see that, because if that's the case, then we would probably begin to have to look for spots where you would have 2 different stations in the same area, so you could alternate between those 2 stations. So if we take Robico again as an example, it might actually be that you want to get a medium ship, and then sometimes you want to go to Robico Mines, but when the missions are beginning to run out of Robico Mines, you go to House's Reach because they're simply paying more over there. Then you run a few cycles on House's Reach until that begin. Then you could go back to Robico Mine, at which point it would probably have refreshed itself. So it's probably stuff like that we have to begin to look into when this new mission server is implemented. So what do I think overall? Well, overall, the reduction from 15 to 10 minutes might open up some new spots. There might be some stations where you maybe that's gonna, I don't know, that could potentially open up some new money-making spots. I'm not really sure, because again, yes, you could board hop now, so you would still have less missions available, but I don't know, maybe that's gonna have an effect somewhere. Overall, I do feel like this is, of course, going to be a reduction in the potential credits per hour, but I also think it's going to give a more even payout. So I don't think we're going to have these, not as much as we've had before, that we're going to have these hotspots that's going to be the place you go to make missions. So they go to that system, run that type of mission to that destination. So I think we're going to see more of an even spread. There's going to be less of a difference between what you're going to make at these hotspots, because they will still be there, compared to what you would maybe be able to make on average across the game, which I overall think is a good change. But I do feel like it's a shame that they are going to make an overall reduction in the payout of the mission, of the credit potential per hour. One final point, of course, could be that they are trying to even out the missions a little bit. Hopefully they are going to buff other aspects of the game. Now, mining, of course, is also coming in the new update. There's going to be some exploration changes. It doesn't seem like there's going to be much of a change to the payout for exploration, but at least I hope that mining is going to be a lot more profitable than it was before, because it really has been lacking and hasn't received a lot of attention since it was introduced into the game pretty much. That's my view on it. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think, and again, I will of course make sure to cover the update as soon as more information is coming out, and give you my thoughts and see how I think it's going to affect the game. So if you want that kind of information, remember to click the subscribe button down below. And if you like this video, give it a like. And until next time, I'll see you guys in space.